Chapter 1. After the company dinner concluded, Ethan vanished like a magician. I asked each of the assistants, but none could tell me where he had gone. All I knew was that the newly appointed CEO had left early, driving off after his speech. "Miss Kim, do you have something urgent to discuss with Mr. Smith?" one of them asked. Forcing a smile, I said, "No, I was just asking. It's quite funny, really. Ethan and I have been in a relationship for 8 years, yet very few people know about it. He always said our relationship didn't need to be public knowledge. As long as I was in his heart, that was enough for me. But is that really the case?" At this moment, I found myself doubting. Unlocking my phone, I saw a long list of messages I had sent. Scrolling back, I found one I had sent to Ethan. "How about we try the new dessert shop in the east of the city after tomorrow's event?" He took forever to reply with a single word, "Okay." Continuing to scroll, I saw a screen full of green message bubbles from me. Since the dinner ended, I had been waiting for him for 4 hours. The early autumn night was cool, and the breeze seemed to blow straight into my heart, making me feel uneasy and vaguely sad. I shivered and hugged myself, trying to warm up. "Where did you go? Why didn't you tell me? I was really worried about you. When you have time, please get back to me. I'm waiting at home." After sending those last 2 messages, I hailed a cab and left. Once home, I washed up and changed into warm pajamas, finally feeling a bit more alive. My phone buzzed and I unlocked it with a flicker of hope. It was just a news notification. Unwilling to give up, I reconnected to the internet and refreshed the chat over and over. The interface remained silent, no new messages in sight. Curled up on the sofa, I spent the night making phone calls. Each time, I heard the same response. "The number you have dialed is currently unavailable." This call lasted longer than usual, and a strange sense of anticipation grew within me. When a stranger finally answered, my heart dropped into an icy pit. "Miss Kim, do you need something?" The sweet, slightly breathless voice spoke haltingly, as if following a rhythm. Just as she began to finish her thought, her tone sharply rose and then fell, trembling at the end. My face turned pale, and the hand holding the phone started to tremble uncontrollably. It felt like a buzzing radar in my ears, drowning out all other sounds. A mix of discomfort and nausea overwhelmed me, my stomach churning as bile rose, nearly making me vomit. I opened my mouth, ready to sternly question her about her identity and why she had my boyfriend's phone. But before I could speak, she hung up unceremoniously. In that last moment before the call ended, I faintly heard a familiar voice. "Busy right now, talk later." The phone slipped from my hand, hitting the floor with a thud that echoed in the silent room. The first rays of morning sunlight pierced through the curtains, stinging my eyes like needles, and tears flowed uncontrollably. It was then that I realized the night had passed. The pain in my stomach shot through my nerves, tightening my throat. I clutched my neck and crawled to the edge of the sofa, dry heaving. My fingers dug into the fabric, forming fists. I knew my stomach issues were flaring up again. Realizing this, I endured the pain and stumbled barefoot to the fridge, taking out the cake we had for our anniversary celebration the night before. Holding it, I stuffed it into my mouth without caring about the cream smeared all over my face. I decided then that I would never buy from that shop again. The cake was disgustingly sweet. As that thought crossed my mind, another followed. Ethan had cheated on me. The boy who had loved me for 8 years, whose eyes once held only me, had betrayed me. On the night of his success, on our anniversary and on my 27th birthday, Ethan and I were college mates, having graduated from the same university. From our first encounter as freshmen to falling in love, 8 years have swiftly passed. I still vividly remember the day we first met. Our eyes met by chance, and his lit up with an intensity that took my breath away. What I thought was just a fleeting moment turned into frequent encounters at club activities, where we found ourselves drawn to each other. He took the initiative to ask for my contact information, and with a semester of attentive care, he gradually melted my heart. I was captivated by his gentleness and thoughtfulness, feeling safe and cherished in his presence. During a team-building trip to the mountains organized by the club, he led me away from the noisy crowd. Under the vast starlit sky, he surprised me by pulling out flowers and confessing his feelings. In that moment, the stars paled in comparison to the warmth radiating from his eyes. Thus, we naturally became a couple. After graduation, I stood by Ethan as he embarked on his entrepreneurial journey. In our small rented room, We would lie side by side, sharing dreams and aspirations. Wrapped in his warm embrace, we envisioned a bright and beautiful future together. After 4 years of relentless effort, his studio blossomed into a publicly listed company. He transformed from an unknown rookie into a prominent figure in the business world, becoming the leading force behind eCloud Company. I still remember the day Ethan held my hand tightly, promising that once his career took off, he would publicly acknowledge our relationship. He vowed to propose to me in a grand way, surrounded by friends and loved ones, making me his bride. But now, what was I to make of this? I quickly finished the last bite of cake, washed up, changed clothes, and resolved to confront him for an explanation. Standing beneath the company building, bathed in sunlight, I gazed up at the imposing eCloud sign, a deep ache settling in my heart. eCloud was not just the fruit of our joint efforts but also a testament to our love. As I approached the reception desk, the employee hurriedly stood to greet me. "Good morning, Miss Kim. Are you here to see Mr. Smith?" I forced a smile and nodded. She had been working here since before my resignation, so she was familiar with me. Due to the irregular hours and frequent social events during the startup phase, I developed stomach issues. Ethan, concerned for my health, encouraged me to rest at home. He insisted I had worked too hard all these years and that from now on I should focus on taking care of myself. While waiting for the elevator, my thoughts were in turmoil. What if Ethan really betrayed me? What if he insisted it wasn't him? What if he claimed it was just a momentary lapse in judgment? I imagined countless scenarios, picturing him urgently explaining himself, swearing never to repeat his mistake. I envisioned him filled with regret, pleading for my forgiveness. But I never imagined this. The door to the CEO's office swung open. Ethan sat in a large leather chair, his clothes slightly rumpled with visible marks on his neck. Upon seeing me, he frowned and called the reception desk, scolding them for letting me in without his permission. I was taken aback by his calm demeanor. After everything that had transpired, he could still act so unfazed. Anger surged within me, threatening to overflow. With my hands planted firmly on the desk, I locked eyes with Ethan, striving to keep my voice steady. "Where were you last night? Who was that woman?" His gaze remained composed, devoid of panic or remorse. My heart ached at the sight. "Speak up. Why are you silent?" Ethan lazily lifted his eyelids, glancing at me with indifference. "Let's break up. How could I be with someone who brings me bad luck?" The wounds from my childhood, which had just begun to heal, were ripped open again in that moment. Bad luck. A hollow laugh escaped me, tears spilling down my cheeks uncontrollably. Chapter 3. It happened 6 years ago. We were sophomores in college, out for a stroll when we encountered a fortune teller. He scrutinized me from head to toe, stroked his white beard, and turned to Ethan, saying, "Young man, you have a prosperous future ahead, but this girl carries misfortune and may harm those close to her. Proceed with caution." Ethan laughed at the time. "Honey, did you hear that? The old man says you'll bring me bad luck." My face went pale at his words and nightmarish memories surged in my mind. Ethan, half smiling, looked back at the fortune teller and asked if it required payment to break this so-called bad luck. The old man chuckled, his meaning clear. Before I could argue, Ethan noticed my distress. "What's wrong? You look pale. Are you feeling unwell?" I didn't respond. I simply tugged at his sleeve, wanting to leave quickly. Though confused, Ethan complied. As we walked away, the fortune teller's voice echoed behind us, warning that my presence would bring ruin to those around me. Once we were far enough away, I turned to Ethan and shared a story. I told him about a family that finally had a daughter after 5 long years of marriage. One day, a fortune teller passed by and declared that the girl was destined to be an only child, a rare lonely star. The parents believed him, thinking she was the reason their long-awaited son hadn't arrived. They paid for rituals, forcing her to drink strange concoctions. Eventually, the father lost his job due to a mistake, and from then on, they blamed the girl even more, withholding food and treating her coldly. Ultimately, they sent her to an orphanage. Strangely, once in the orphanage, the girl felt a sense of relief. It was my first time revealing my childhood scars, and my eyelashes trembled as I feared seeing disdain and disgust in Ethan's eyes. Ethan ruffled my hair and pulled me close, his warm breath brushing my ear. "Silly girl, how could I believe such nonsense from a street charlatan? Do you know how the story ends?" I asked. The girl eventually meets a boy who truly loves her, and together they create a warm home. Ethan cupped my face, his gaze intense. The image of him before me began to merge with the boy in the story. He stood up, sauntering to the floor-to-ceiling window, looking down at me. "eCloud has come a long way, Bella. You wouldn't want it to fall apart in your hands, would you? Besides, I've been living so wearily these past years. Our relationship isn't as passionate as it once was. Perhaps it's time we give each other some space." His expression was sincere, but the words struck differently. The one who loves you most can also be the one who hurts you deepest. 8 years of love ended abruptly, in a way that felt utterly unacceptable. "Ethan, I brought breakfast." "Sorry, Miss Kim, I didn't know you were here." A petite girl stood at the door, her eyes wide with apprehension. She had delicate features, flawless makeup, and a graceful figure, accentuated by an expensive silk scarf around her neck. In her hand, she held a charming pink breakfast bag. I frowned slightly, recognizing her as one of Ethan's assistants, Angel. There had been some tension between us because of her. The first time I encountered her was 2 years ago, one evening. She knocked on my door, her eyes red, supporting a very drunk Ethan. Ethan was allergic to alcohol and shouldn't have been drinking at all. In the early days of starting the studio, he had to attend social events to attract investment, often forcing down drinks even when it was difficult. Back then, I was always by his side, helping him fend off one drink after another. It was only when eCloud began to thrive that things changed. But my stomach had paid the price. Chapter 4. Ethan's current state was clearly not right. With Angel's help, we carefully placed him on the sofa. Before I could speak, tears cascaded down her cheeks like pearls strung on a necklace. "Miss Kim, it's all my fault. I'm so useless. But I just couldn't drink anymore. Please don't blame Mr. Smith. If you must blame someone, blame me." As I gazed at the unconscious Ethan on the sofa, I managed to say with great difficulty, "It's okay, you can go now. I'll handle this." Angel left the room, bowing deeply and apologizing, her eyes lingering on me with reluctance as she exited. Once she was gone, I steeled myself and turned to wake Ethan. "Why did you help her drink when you know you're allergic to alcohol?" Ethan wrapped his arms around me, his voice low and weary. "Bella, please don't do this. My head is pounding. And Walker just graduated. How could she handle this kind of situation? It's my fault for not understanding the situation and letting her attend. We're clean and innocent. Don't let your imagination run wild, all right?" He repeatedly assured me that there was nothing between him and Angel, swearing that I was the only one he loved in this lifetime. But now all those words felt like empty promises. Right before my eyes, Ethan effortlessly drew Angel closer, guiding her to sit at his desk, playfully flicking her nose. The girl blushed, pushing his hand away in a mock protest. "What are you doing? There are other people here." Angel then reached into a thermos, skillfully retrieving bowls and chopsticks from the break room to serve porridge. "Miss Kim, you probably haven't had breakfast yet. If you don't mind, please join us. I made this myself." She flashed me a smile, her eyes glimmering with a challenge that was impossible to ignore. For reasons I couldn't quite grasp, I forced a casual smile and replied, "Sure." I took the bowl, hesitantly tasting a spoonful. The familiar flavor washed over me, but instead of comfort, it filled me with suffocating nausea. When I was first diagnosed with stomach issues, the doctor had insisted on a bland diet for 2 months. Ethan, feeling guilty, would rise early each morning to prepare porridge before heading to the office. Even though his cooking skills were woefully inadequate, I savored every bowl, relishing the effort he put in. As the company began to expand, Ethan's schedule grew more chaotic. He would leave before dawn and often return well past dark. Eventually, he nearly always spent the night at the office. Yet he still made it a point to deliver a thermos each day filled with my favorite porridge. I often wondered how his cooking had suddenly improved. He would laugh and say, "Maybe it's the power of love." Looking back, I now question whether the company was genuinely that busy back then. But the hints of their ambiguous relationship must have started during that time. It's almost comical that I felt sympathy for him, convinced he was waking early to cook for me. I even told him to stop bothering, encouraging him to focus on his work instead. But the truth was he was merely using someone else's effort to gain my favor, relying on the third party's goodwill. No wonder Angel's breakfast bag felt so familiar. My heart ached as if a sharp blade were cutting through it. In Angel's mocking gaze, I felt completely exposed, stripped of all my defenses. 8 years of love had disintegrated into nothingness. A fire of rage ignited within me, consuming every ounce of feeling I had for Ethan. I strode toward them with the bowl. Instinctively, Ethan shielded Angel, his expression turning icy. "What do you think you're doing? I warn you, don't act rashly. This has nothing to do with her." I responded with a cold sneer. Then, in a burst of anger, I flipped the bowl over Ethan's head, letting the porridge cascade down him. "Bella, have you lost your mind?" he roared, his eyes wide with shock, teeth clenched in fury. Angel let out a scream, jumping up to help him clean up the mess. I scoffed, seizing the moment to slap him hard across the face. "You scumbag, we're finished." Chapter 5. Leaving the chaos behind, I coolly hailed a cab and headed home. As I looked around at the memories we had created together over the years, my resentment toward Ethan deepened. 8 years of love had culminated in such a dismal ending. The boy who once swore never to leave me, who promised to give me a home, had ultimately drifted away. The feeling of betrayal crashed over me like a relentless tide, and tears streamed down my face once more. They fell onto the sofa, pooling together into a small stream. Hugging my knees, I curled up on the couch, trying to find warmth in my own embrace. I had never seen myself as a lonely star. But the disdain from family and loved ones made me question myself repeatedly. Could it be that I truly didn't deserve love at all? I cried for nearly half an hour. Then, forcing myself to regain my composure, I began clearing out everything that reminded me of him from the house. I shredded, smashed, and tossed everything outside the door. I snapped a photo and sent it to Ethan, leaving only the message, "Scumbag, go to hell." Without a second thought, I blocked all his contacts. Life had to go on, he wasn't worth my time. After doing all this, I picked at some tasteless takeout. What was I supposed to do next? Due to my stomach issues and Ethan's insistence that I rest, I hadn't worked in over 2 years. Returning to eCloud was out of the question. Besides, I no longer had a place there. A strong wave of frustration surged within me. When eCloud was just starting out, I was the one who hoped it would grow quickly more than anyone else. I had poured so much into it. Why should those two scumbags benefit from it in the end? Thinking this, I clenched my fists tightly. Since Ethan said I brought him bad luck, I would ruin eCloud just to prove him wrong. In the days that followed, I applied for jobs everywhere. But no one was willing to hire me. The reasons were always my age or that I had been out of the workforce for too long. It was then that I realized how foolish I had been to devote myself entirely to Ethan. At my wit's end, I dug out an old phone number I had saved. After a long hesitation, I finally pressed the call button. A deep male voice answered on the other end. Even just hearing his voice, I could sense his powerful presence. "Mr. Walker, I wonder if what you said 2 years ago still stands?" Jack chuckled softly. "Of course, Ms. Kim." Chapter 6. I arrived early at the agreed-upon restaurant, where a gentleman was already seated. He wore a tailored black suit that fit him perfectly, his tall figure radiating an extraordinary aura. Even as the overhead lights flickered, they only highlighted the sharp contours of his face. Jack looked up at me. No matter how many times I saw him, I was always taken aback by his striking good looks. Jack was the head of Walker Group. In comparison, eCloud felt like a novice in the industry. 3 years ago, we competed for a small project. It was insignificant for Walker Group but crucial for Hee-Yun. I pulled several all-nighters, revising multiple proposals over and over. In the end, leveraging a slight edge, I snatched a piece of the pie from a sleeping tiger. It was unheard of at that time. Who had the guts and ability to take a project from Jack? That victory put eCloud on the map. After the event, an unfamiliar assistant handed me a business card, respectfully urging me to look ahead. Confused, I looked up. In a hidden corner stood a man, displaying no hint of defeat, his features delicate and demeanor calm. Seeing me look over, he casually raised a slender hand to greet me. "What does Mr. Walker mean by this?" I asked. The assistant smiled. "Perhaps a young eagle needs a broader sky to soar. If Ms. Kim has any needs, she can always contact our Mr. Walker." By the time I grasped the meaning behind those words, Jack and his assistant had already walked away. I thought I'd never have the chance to use this opportunity in my lifetime. But life is unpredictable and people change. I expected Jack to consider my long absence from the workforce, but he seemed unconcerned. Joining Walker Group was settled surprisingly easily. When I shook Jack's warm hand, I was still caught in a state of disbelief. "Looking forward to working with you," I said. His lips curved into a smile, his voice deep and melodious. Chapter 7. To not disappoint Jack and to quickly adapt to the job. I restarted the busy working pace. But as the days went by, my stomach, which had been gradually improving, started acting up again. After finishing my files, I realized I had missed lunchtime. My stomach ached as if reminding me to find food. I randomly chose a noodle shop downstairs, only to find Angel already there. She sauntered over, smiling slyly. "Miss Kim, what a coincidence. Ethan said this new noodle shop is good, so he brought me to try it. Why don't you join us?" Though she said it, her eyes held no invitation, only blatant challenge. What rotten luck. My stomach was already upset and now my eyes had to suffer too. I replied, "Ms. Yi, we're not that familiar, are we? I don't eat with just anyone, especially if it might ruin my appetite." "You." Angel's eyes widened and tears instantly welled up, falling quickly. "Miss Kim, I'm sorry. I just didn't want you to eat alone. If you feel uncomfortable, you could have just refused. No need to make it hard for me." Before I could process her sudden tears, I was shoved hard. Caught off guard, my side hit the table corner and I grimaced in pain. Hissing, I clutched my side, seeing Ethan holding Angel, comforting her softly. Frowning, he asked, "Bella, what are you doing here? We've broken up. Stop bothering me, okay? I've told you this has nothing to do with Walker. Why do you keep picking on her? I never knew you were so petty." I straightened up, retorting, "Ethan, I never knew you were so self-absorbed. I work nearby. Is there something wrong with being here?" Ethan eyed me up and down, his tone hostile. "Bella, don't tell me you're working at Walker Group. With your current skills, you can't even get into eCloud, let alone Walker Group." This business district was Walker Group's territory, so his guess wasn't strange. I was contemplating slapping him or kicking him when a broad figure appeared behind me. A weight settled on my left shoulder, and a deep, amused voice came from above. "What a coincidence, Yun does work at Walker Group." I froze. What was he doing here? "You must be Mr. Smith from eCloud. If you need an ophthalmologist, feel free to ask me. After all, if you weren't blind, you wouldn't make such irrational choices." Jack paused, then continued slowly. "Whether in staffing or in emotional matters." The faces of the two before me turned pale. Angel looked pitifully aggrieved. Ethan forced a laugh, about to speak. Feeling bored, I tugged Jack's sleeve. "Let's go. I haven't eaten yet. I just wanted a quiet meal." But it turned into the busy Mr. Walker watching me eat. What a scenario. How could a big boss be so free to watch an employee eat? Though Jack had helped me, I felt uneasy telling him to leave. I felt immense pressure. I subtly turned aside, avoiding his gaze. To end this torture quickly, I wolfed down my food. And then I choked on my meal. Chapter 8. I grabbed the water jug and gulped it down. I almost made myself choke, my eyes nearly rolling back. Jack, startled, quickly came over and patted my back. His expression was a mix of amusement and concern. "Hey Yun, slow down. I'm not taking your food." Finally catching my breath, my face was red. I must have looked like someone who hadn't eaten in ages, embarrassing myself. Why did this nickname sound so intimate now? My ears warmed and I felt a bit awkward. I stammered, "Mr. Walker, you can just call me Bella." Yun sounds a bit too familiar. "I wouldn't want to tarnish your prestigious reputation," I joked. Jack's dark eyes looked straight into mine, his lips parting. "What if I say I don't mind?" A shiver ran down my spine, feeling like prey under a predator's gaze with no place to hide. What did he mean by that? Not minding what? His reputation? Or others' misunderstandings? Stop. I couldn't think any deeper. Jack's gaze was unreadable. I avoided his fiery eyes. Forcing a grin, I changed the subject. Jack didn't press for an answer, naturally following my new topic. I secretly sighed in relief but felt a slight unease. Weeks passed since that day. Ethan, for some reason, seemed to have lost his mind. He kept changing phone numbers to message me. "Bella, when did you start sucking up to Mr. Walker? What's your relationship? Don't say I didn't warn you. Jack isn't someone you can mess with. If you come and apologize to Walker, I might consider letting you return to eCloud." Sometimes things are so absurd that you can't help but laugh. Now he's no longer afraid I'll bring him bad luck? Chapter 9. Looking at the list of companies competing for the project, I raised an eyebrow at the sight of eCloud. I never expected to cross paths with them so soon. While eCloud had grown significantly, it still had a long way to go to match Walker Group. From what I knew about eCloud's current development, this project was crucial for Ethan. Since that's the case, I couldn't let him win this project. It felt like I had reverted to my early days in the workforce, working tirelessly. Jack, perhaps sensing something, helped review and refine my proposal, both openly and discreetly. Seeing the final product, I realized just how exceptional Walker Group was. If I had an 80% chance of beating Ethan before, now it was 95%. Jack was undoubtedly a business genius. His vision and planning far surpassed ordinary people. As expected, Walker Group won the project effortlessly. Ethan glared at me, his eyes filled with silent accusation of my betrayal. I raised my chin, giving him a cold smile, mouthing the words, "Defeated opponent. We really have to do this, don't we? Deep down you still care about me. Otherwise, why would you confront me like this? Value 1. Let's reconcile. I suddenly realized I still love you." Reading his message, I found myself speechless. I didn't dare respond, afraid he might take it as a sign of victory. Sometimes, I really admired Ethan's ability to switch his feelings on and off so quickly. Clotheslines didn't change direction as fast as he did. Once again, I intercepted a project Ethan had been confident about. After the meeting, his face darkened. He dragged me to a secluded corner, ignoring the surprised looks from others. "What do you want? Let me go." "Let go." I struggled, hitting his arm, but he remained unmoved. He had lost his mind. Ethan pinned me against the wall, his eyes bloodshot, his under-eye circles dark, completely losing the composed demeanor of a rising business star. "Ethangian, do you really have to be so heartless? Cloud is our joint effort. How can you be so ruthless? How did you become like this? Wasn't I the love of your life? I know you're still angry, but please give eCloud a chance. It's also your creation." I laughed bitterly. "So Ethan, you do understand that eCloud's success partly owes to me. Yet you still use my painful past to hurt me. Now what right do you have to lecture me? It's just fair competition, isn't it? Didn't you say I was a bad luck charm, unworthy of being with you? Why are you barking now?" Ethan's face turned pale instantly, guilt flashing in his eyes. "That's not what I meant. I didn't mean it that way." I cut him off. "Enough. I don't want to hear it." Ethan's eyelashes fluttered slightly. He clenched his jaw, cupping my face, leaning in for a kiss. I widened my eyes, turning my head, feeling his disgusting touch graze my right cheek. In the next second, Ethan was knocked to the ground by a sudden force. Jack appeared out of nowhere, pinning him down, his face furious. His punches rained down on Ethan. Ethan fought back and they soon wrestled fiercely. Angel screamed, rushing to separate them. But no one paid her any attention. Seeing the fight intensify, I quickly called out for Jack to stop. Although I wished Jack would beat Ethan into submission, I was more concerned about the potential bad press for Walker Group. I pulled Jack away. Angel helped the injured Ethan, looking heartbroken. Halfway out, I suddenly stopped. Seeing the hopeful look in Ethan's eyes, I lifted my right foot and kicked him hard in the groin. "Want to force a kiss on me? Dream on. I'll kick you to death." Chapter 10. After walking out, I noticed a cut on Jack's finger. I asked the event staff for some disinfectant and planned to treat his wound. Jack looked down, his eyes fixed on me, his dark pupils shimmering. He lowered his eyelids, raising his hand weakly. "It hurts." It felt like a majestic big dog acting cute and obedient. Why was my heart racing all of a sudden? Imagining the normally stern Jack having such a side, a phrase popped into my head. "Mr. Walker, you surely wouldn't want your subordinates to know that you..." I shook my head. What was I even thinking? I deliberately put on a stern face and glared at him. "I know I'm treating it now, aren't I?" I lowered my head, carefully disinfecting and applying ointment to his wound. But my mind kept playing scenes of Jack in various forms. After applying the bandage, I looked up and met his warm, focused gaze. Our eyes locked, neither of us looking away first. "Can I kiss you?" The moment the words left his mouth, a flicker of regret flashed in Jack's eyes. "Sorry, I didn't mean to be inappropriate. You can pretend you didn't hear that." "Yes." Hearing my response, his eyes lit up like fireworks. Jack tilted his head and gently pressed his lips to mine. His unique cool scent enveloped my senses. His large hand cupped my ear. The sound of our lips meeting was clear in my ears. It was a bit too stimulating. I felt a bit shy. I tried to push him away with my hand on his chest. Though I hadn't drunk, my head was spinning, unable to think straight. Jack pulled back slightly, but as if punishing me, he gently bit my lip, the force not strong but enough to hurt. Then he kissed me more passionately. After a while, I couldn't help but lightly bite Jack in return as a warning. Giving him a look to indicate enough was enough. Jack, feeling the pain, let go, holding me tightly with a goofy smile like a big fool. Chapter 11. Jack and I fell in love. He even bought me a medium-sized company to compete with Ethan. Looking at the prominent Walker Yun Group sign on the company's rooftop, I couldn't help but laugh. After months of hard work, Walker Yun's growth was unstoppable, showing signs of surpassing eCloud. Meanwhile, eCloud, due to Ethan's repeated poor decisions and hasty actions, lost much of its strength. However, I did leave eCloud some room to breathe. As long as Ethan didn't mess up further, the company could barely maintain itself. Time flies year after year. Eventually, Jack and I walked down the aisle together. On a leisurely weekend evening, we strolled along the river after dinner. I playfully asked Jack to get me an ice cream. Though he muttered about cold food being bad, he went to get it anyway. As I sat on the bench waiting, Ethan suddenly appeared. He knelt at my feet, his voice filled with humility. "Bella and Walker and I have broken up. Please forgive me." I was momentarily lost, and she took advantage of that. "Please give me another chance. I promise to devote myself to you from now on." His eyes reddened, filled with helplessness. I looked into his eyes, speaking sincerely. "Ethan, stop making a fool of yourself. A man who can't control himself has no right to ask for a second chance. Besides," I raised my hand, showing my wedding ring, smiling sweetly, "I'm already married. Please don't disturb my happy life." Ethan's face turned ashen. He swayed, barely able to stand. Just then, I saw Jack returning with the ice cream, looking like the sky was about to fall. He rushed over, kicking Ethan to the ground. "Stay away from my wife." Seeing him ready to roll up his sleeves for another round, I quickly stood up, throwing myself into his arms. "Honey, let's go. Don't bother with irrelevant people. If you get angry over him, I'll be sad." Chapter 12. eCloud eventually shut down. Angel left Ethan, seeking another seemingly better place. Unfortunately, this time she chose a married man. His wife had dealt with countless women like her, hoping for fame and fortune. For Angel, the wife handled her as easily as squashing a bug. What happened to her after that, I have no idea. As for Ethan, I saw him again in the hospital's intensive care unit. Over the years, despite being allergic to alcohol, he drank excessively, becoming a frequent hospital visitor. In the end, his body couldn't take it anymore. The hospital advised him to notify his family, but he called me instead. With his life nearing its end, I took Jack to visit him one last time. Ethan lay on the bed, emaciated to the bone. He stared at me, his eyes filled with regret and longing. If I hadn't been momentarily blinded back then, would we? I smiled, cutting him off. My tone was calm. "Ethan, it's meaningless to talk about this now. I'm doing well now." His face turned pale, a self-deprecating smile forming. "You're right, someone as untrustworthy as me deserves this fate." The sunlight outside the window streamed through the glass, illuminating his frail face that it couldn't brighten.